2, 1. Welcome to Tampa Town, Bulldog fans. And as the band, a little before your time, my time, Molly Hatchet used to sing, it's a mighty fine place to be, especially when you're getting ready here at Raymond James Stadium for the Mississippi State number 18 ranked Bulldogs to take on Iowa in the Outback Bowl. Steve, congratulations for making here. I know you had a long trip in from family obligations to Houston, but Bulldogs, I was able to watch the parade last night, attended coach press conferences, other things. Bulldogs in a great mood, but now they've got to get down to serious business against an Iowa team that is not going to be intimidated by playing an SEC squad.
Well, David, let's hope we're not flirting with disaster here in Raymond James Stadium. That's right.
Now that we're here in Gator country.
That's
yes.
Absolutely. But good segue there. But the Hawkeyes, not strangers to this stadium or this event. First-time event for Mississippi State, obviously. But let's be honest, the venue doesn't mean a whole lot at this point. It's a great venue. It's Tampa Bay Buccaneers home stadium, but this is about the matchups between Mississippi State and Iowa. We believe Mississippi State has an advantage on both sides of the football.
Now, I don't think the advantages are huge. You'd agree with that. Mississippi State, and offensively, you look at things, you don't really judge statistics so much as you do style. And listening to Coach Kirk Ferentz, great interview, by the way, a good guy to talk to, very confident, very loose in the coach's presser. And Coach Fedor had both two Western Pennsylvania guys. I thought it was a great comment that they said, yeah, they grew up on other sides of the river, and that part of Pennsylvania, you might as well be in different countries in that regard. So maybe they want to one-up each other as coaches, but they have two very similar offensive teams, very physical, very aggressive, but two very hard-hitting defenses. You just got to think that the edge comes down to Mississippi State's defense being a little bit better at most positions.
Well, I agree with that, but also, too, State has the more mobile quarterback. And I think in a ball game like this, who can kind of improvise when things break down might be the difference in the ball game. But you're right, David. This is not going to be for the faint of heart. This is two teams that want to run the football. They want to establish the run. They want to stop the run. State number one in scoring defense. The Hawkeyes, I think, 11th in scoring defense. So both of these teams very stingy. It could be a defensive struggle today.
And I really think it'll be a fast game as well. Like I said, two teams want to run the game. If either team is forced into throwing the ball, then you think they're going to have an advantage at that point because two teams that rush the passer well. But let's face it, nobody rushes as well as the Bulldogs do, and you've got the number one scoring defense in the country. They very much want to defend that title through this because, remember, bowl game stats do count.
They do, David, and for many of these Bulldogs, it's their final game in the maroon and white. You guys like Montez Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons have kind of written their names in the record books as well as the hearts and minds of Bulldog fans. So this is going to be a send-off for them, and they want to come out here in an NFL stadium, a place where they hope to come back one day, whether as a player, visitor, or home. This should be a great opportunity for them to close out their Bulldog careers.
And speaking of a player who wants to move on to the NFL, Nick Fitzgerald, of course, he's going to stay in Florida. He's going to head down to Fort Lauderdale as soon as the bowl is over tomorrow and start working with a personal trainer and quarterback coach to get ready for the draft. What other dogs should we keep an eye on at this? Obviously, Elkin Jenkins and Deion Calhoun, guys like that, but maybe some behind-the-scenes guys that we ought to think about today as their last game as a Bulldog, but also the last game before they move on to pro careers.
Yeah, David, there's some of those guys that we expect to go into camp, Corey Thomas or Braxton Hoyett. We feel like they'll be undrafted free agents. You could even see a guy like Grant Harris. He's been very, very productive. Guys like that, almost the window for them was a little bit wrong because they happened to be here when State has had a ridiculous amount of depth on the defensive front. We think all those guys, Mark McLaurin is a guy we think, while he may not test well, he's got great film. We'll certainly have an opportunity to play on the next level. And then, we'll see what happens to some of these bigger guys on the offensive side of football. But, we're going to have a lot of Bulldogs leave here today and begin their preparations for Pro Day, which is the next time we'll see most of them.
And I mentioned Nick Fitzgerald. We posted a feature today on Gene's Page 24/7. He says he gave it everything he had. Yes, you can maybe question some of the things that happened over the seasons, first with Dan Mullen and Joe Moorhead. And he said that, yes, they really underestimated how difficult the transition from one style to another would be. But let's face it, they got it right. When it counted the second half of the season, he comes in this game on a 5-game stretch where he's thrown 11 touchdowns, zero interceptions, and completed 62% of his passing. If he's able to be efficient like that today, Bulldog fans ought to give this guy a rousing send-off because he is a true warrior for a guy who is now in his 6th bowl situation.
And, David, you're right. He has given everything for Mississippi State, and sometimes it makes results, but you can never doubt his heart and never doubt his commitment to Mississippi State. Interestingly enough, David, with 432 yards of offense, which is a big day, but with 432 yards of offense, Nick could eclipse 10,000 yards for his career. I don't know that he gets that against this defense, but that's something for Bulldog fans to kind of monitor throughout the day. I do think he can come out here and run the football against these guys, but the bottom line is Nick Fitzgerald has paid a huge price to be a Mississippi State Bulldog and has come back from a very gruesome injury and deserves a victory today.
Also, we were able to attend Saturday's practice and then talk to the coaches afterwards. Of course, you know, Keith Mixon will not play today's game, personal choice there. So Dedrick Thomas has moved up along with Austin Williams in the slot receiver rotation. Malik Deer is now playing at the outside receiver position in a rotation with Stephen Guidry and Jesse Jackson. And on the other side, Osiris Mitchell and Devontae Jason. So they've adjusted some things offensively. Kylan Hill still running number one at running back, but Aris Williams will get his carries. The defensive side, I thought it very interesting because Miami. Iowa will throw power formations, but will run 4 receiver formations. Coach Bob Shoop was trying a lot of 3 and 4-man fronts, 3 and 2 linebackers, 3 and 4 safety sets. I think the Bulldog defense is going to be prepared for anything Iowa throws. It all comes down to execution, obviously, but there's nothing going to surprise Bob Shoop and his squad today.
Well, I think you got it. Bob Shoop has been a very cerebral coach this year. Found a way to get people uncomfortable, as he did with Ole Miss, and that probably the best defensive game Mississippi State's played all year. Great job against Alabama. With a month to prepare, you got to feel like he'll have some new wrinkles kind of dialed in for this Iowa Hawkeye offense. And with Stanley back there at quarterback, who's not the most mobile quarterback, he's not a guy that's a plus runner. With a guy that's kind of a stationary quarterback, you got to think there's going to be some exotic pressures that Shoop will dial up today.
So, we're here getting ready for the game. Kicks off at noon our time, 11 back in Mississippi in God's country. And Steve and I will be talking afterwards after hopefully a Bulldog victory. Great conditions. Good Bulldog turnout last night at the pep rally. A great Iowa turnout too. So the Cowbells are going to have to really rise to the occasion to keep the volume in the stands equalized. But we expect a good solid football game today and a great way for Mississippi State football to kick off 2019 to end at 2018, which we're going to do a column on about was it the most successful sports year in Bulldog history? Kind of tending that way, we think. But we'll see how 2019 starts out. So, following the game, we'll have our updated reports. Robbie Falk is here with us to write file stories. Steve will be down in the field shooting photographs. I'll be writing game story and other notes. We'll be taking care of a game thread as well. We'll have full coverage of the Outback Bowls. Mississippi State, number 18 in the country, takes on the Iowa Hawkeyes. So, for Steve Robertson from Raymond James Stadium here on the field, this is David Murray.